viewers. Thank you for tuning in today. My name is Arun and I'm the host of our show, AI with Arun Show. So, thank you so much for tuning in. And today, we are very honored and privileged to have Anand Ranganathan on our call. Anand is truly a rock star in the world of AI. So, Anand, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Oh, thank you for the kind words and the and the glowing start as well.
Great, great. Awesome, Anand. So, very quickly, intros on Anand. So, Anand is the co founder and the chief AI officer at Unscrambling, which is a US based company. He leads product development in various areas such as natural language processing, NLP, conversational analytics. And previously, he was a master inventor and research scientist at IBM. And wow, this is fantastic. So, he is a PhD in computer science from the Urbana-Champaign University in Chicago and a BTech from IIT Chennai. So two fabulous, fabulous places, Anand, that you have been to that shows your pedigree and the kind of value that you bring. That's phenomenal.
Thank
And to
you.
add to it, Anand has over 70 academic journals and 30 patent filings against his name. Wow, that is phenomenal, Anand. And I'm sure the people who are listening in today are going to listen in today to this channel. They have so much to learn from you. Those numbers are very telling. 70 academic journals and 30 patents. Wow.
Just a quick point. I got my PhD from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, which is close to Chicago, but yeah, it's a
Yeah,
different town.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, on the company that Anand co-founded, Unscramble, it's a leading augmented intelligence solutions headquartered in Atlanta. Their leading augmented intelligence solution, Cubo, is recognized by Gartner in the emerging space of conversational analytics. So this tool enables two-way conversation for business users in natural English. So I, as a business user, could query something about what are the top sales that has happened in, let's say, North America or things like that, or what does my financial look like for a particular business segment, and this tool could return back to me. And that's the future of conversational analytics and conversational AI that we're looking at. And Anand, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Indeed, no, happy. Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to the chat.
Great, great. So, Anand, very quickly, let's get into our topic for today. So, you have had such a fantastic journey, right? You are a PhD. You went to the best of the institutions in India and in the US in computer science. You're here. You're working in a company. But how did the journey look like when you were younger? Not to say that you're not anymore. You're younger.
Sure, yeah. So I did my BTech from IIT Madras and I went to did a PhD from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. So no, at that time, both of course are great institutions. IIT has some of the best students in the country, so it is a privilege both being with other top students around the country in the same hostel essentially, and talking about all kinds of things and dreaming about all kinds of things. And then also UIUC, there's lots of the UIUC had a very strong combination of both research as well as entrepreneurship there. So great experience there as well. And the professors working with was also very innovative in terms of pushing the boundary of at the intersection of systems and AI. So at that time in the early 2000s, AI was not the same hot word it is today. It almost sometimes had a negative connotation because at that time AI was associated with expert systems, which were notoriously fragile and difficult to develop. Right? So, but yeah, it's changed in the 2010s onwards. But yeah, we did a whole bunch of interesting work on what I sometimes call classical AI, which is things around knowledge representation and reasoning, planning, the semantic web, and a few topics. And then, also went into machine learning and deep learning over time. But yeah, so those are some of the things that shaped, I guess, my earlier life, being in institutions and always straddling the boundary between AI and systems.
Great, great. And Anand, you mentioned about some of the professors. Did you have a mentor who helped you in your early years?
So yeah, my advisor, research advisor, his name is Roy Campbell, and yeah, he was a great advisor because he gave the freedom in terms of allowing me to pursue kind of wacky ideas at that time for my PhD, while also his group had a whole bunch of very great students, some of whom are now faculty at top universities as well. No, so it was a great experience being advised by him. And then after after UIUC, I went to IBM Research for about 10 years, and there as well, worked with great folks. Some of who are now again are top researchers in different parts of the country, and yeah, that whole research grounding inspired me to be creative, right? So part of my own philosophy is I want to create something new and innovative, which is also explains my journey through PhD and through research, right? And that also further went into the startup world, where I wanted to be able to create something new and exciting, and see how far I can take it.
Fantastic. And you mentioned about you working with a lot of researchers at IBM Research. So now you are such an established person yourself. What kind of advice would you have for a young researcher or a young person who's coming out of, let's say, college or school at this point of time?
It's uh, it's actually an interesting time to do research. Right? There's and the space of research in computer science has changed a little bit, I think, over the last few years, especially with AI and big data. Um, so so at that time, I guess, when I was coming out, when I was finishing my PhD, I was equally interested in both possibly doing industrial research and academia. But I think these days the amount of resources needed to do really good AI work, especially, is difficult to get in academia, perhaps. Right? And there's lots of interesting work coming out of uh, of research labs in different enterprises. So as a young, you know, as a researcher coming out, and the big question often in everybody's mind is, should I go into academia or should I go into industry? As somebody who's finished a PhD, and I think the scale is slightly being weighted towards industry the last few years, with all the resources in the hands of especially some of the bigger companies in this space. And so that's one consideration. And the other consideration is that, at least for me, I prefer industrial research because I felt there were more real problems that where I could work to make a real impact more quickly. Whereas in academia, there's sometimes the feeling that you have to invent problems to make it interesting and to get papers accepted. So yeah, so that's other consideration. But academia also has lots of things going for it, of course. But just my own path led me through more industrial research and then a startup route.
Wonderful, wonderful. And would you have like let's say a top three or a top five areas of focus that any youngster or anybody who looking to set up their own company should be focused on?
Oh, and again, that's a very time-waiting comment. I think I would have answered very differently a few years back. Um, Again, I guess it's a broad question, but let me focus on AI especially. So I think right now, if you're trying to build an AI startup, it's at least my own personal experience right now. It's actually probably difficult to know what exactly to build because the pace of innovation is so rapid. So OpenAI and Google and all the other big companies are coming out with so many interesting innovations all the time. So like 3 months back, for instance, we thought that voice chat was going to be the next innovative thing where lots of startups are going to make a big play. But now that OpenAI has come out with an extremely well-functioning and nicely designed voice model, it's the future is murkier for startups in that space, I think. So it is, I think, difficult to come up with broad-based AI applications or AI systems or models at the startup today. But I think there's also opportunity in more niche domain-specific areas. So building AI systems for insurance and insurtech or fintech or biotech. I think there's possibly a lot of opportunities in the intersection of AI and certain domains. So that's where, at least right now, if I had to start a company, that's where I would look.
Yeah, that's great. So I would just underline what you just said. There's a great amount of intersection between domain and AI, right? So while an AI specialist brings the AI skills, but how do you apply it in a certain domain, and which is where the domain skills come in. So that's like a great overlap of where to start think of something.
Indeed. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and also perhaps it's something where OpenAI may not immediately come out with a product in and and render your idea moot in a few months.
Right.
That's been a big danger the last couple of years.
Right, right. And the way I see it is that, while OpenAI and other similar platforms are great horizontals, but then the true
Okay.
verticals, which is the domain in this case, that's where a lot of domain-centric knowledge and expertise needs to come in, and how they can tap into the powers of OpenAI type platforms and build solutions, bring efficiencies in their respective models.
Indeed. Yep. No, I agree completely.
Awesome. And so Anand, let's take a look at your own company that you set up, right? Unscramble, that you co-founded, where you're the chief AI officer. What does an AI officer do, first of all? And how did you guys go about starting the company?
Sure. So the company is founded by essentially ex-IBMers. So these are all colleagues of mine from IBM that I met, but they're both in research and in sales at IBM. And when we got together, one of the uh, discussion points was what role will different people take, right? Because there were a few people from IBM. There's another person who was a more natural CTO who had more broad-based knowledge uh, about building systems. So his name is Vibhor Kumar, who's now the CEO of Unscrambling. And I decided to take a more chief AI officer role because we wanted to build an AI product and we wanted to get deep into AI. So, and there's a natural complementarity between building the core product and building the algorithms that power the product, right? So that's how we defined our roles. So yeah, so that's what I would see. That's how I would define a chief AI officer, is somebody who would work with the CTO or potentially CIO to further the AI specific agenda, either as a product or as a service in an enterprise. And so, yeah, and the focus would be on all parts of the AI lifecycle, from building the models to operationalizing them to evaluating them and retraining them, and everything, and making sure they actually work for the purpose that they're being built for. So yeah,
Oh,
that's my take.
yeah, awesome, awesome. So Anand, let's take a step back. Let's talk about some of about the company that you have. So what are the problems that you guys are trying to solve at Unscramble?
Sure. So we actually built two key products at Unscramble. One was in the real-time marketing and real-time analytics space, where the focus was on low latency, high volume ingestion of streaming data from various sources and taking decisions on that data in real time. So the key use cases there for that product, especially, are in real time marketing. So they've been deployed at a few retail banks and financial institutions, for instance, for predicting what's the best offer to send somebody as soon as they take an action. So, for instance, as soon as a person makes a credit card transaction, behind the scenes, an event goes, a streaming event comes out and is processed by a platform, which then detects predicts what's the best offer to send to that customer. Similar use cases for telecommunications and other domains as well, where there are lots of customers, and there are often billions of events a day that need to be processed very quickly. So this product was partly inspired also by some of our prior work at IBM, where we were involved in building the first streaming analytics, the stream processing system that was commercially developed. This is by IBM Research in the late 2000s. So yeah, so that's one of the product on Scramble. The second key product is called Cubo, which is around natural language access to data, especially structured data and databases, data warehouses. So a big challenge that tends to happen in many enterprises is that there's a gap between the people who need data to take decisions, like any business users, and the people who have the SQL or other skills to get to the data and produce the right reports. So over the last few years, there's been a trend towards self-service data access. Gartner also calls them citizen data scientists, and there are lots of terms for this role, where business users need to have access to tools that would allow them to ask questions on diverse data sets that an enterprise might have, get answers quickly in a reliable fashion, and then be able to take decisions on the insights coming from that data. So Cubo is essentially a tool which does, in a conversational manner, allows people to ask questions in natural language. It decides what's the right database, if there are multiple databases behind the scenes, to send the query to, converts a natural language query to that relevant SQL, to that database, gets back the answer, produces a chart, and also produces other insights from the data to explain it to business users. So at a nutshell, that's Cubo. So those are two main products we've built on Unscrambling, and both have their own sets of customers that are using it today.
Awesome, fantastic. So let's go. Those are great products, Anand. So let's talk about the first product a little bit, which is the data, the real time data streaming that you have, right? So the way I understand it is that you have a real time streaming engine that you built,
Yep.
and depending on the kind of use cases. So walk me through a use case, Anand. How would that work in a real time situation? Let's say I'm a shopper. I went to a Safeway or a Macy's and I bought something. I bought a nice dress for myself.
Mm-hmm.
How would your tool actually help a customer like that in that situation?
So common use case, this is again a common use case for financial institutions where as soon as a transaction is made with a credit card, you might get an offer. So an example offer might be, uh, do you want to stagger your payments for this thing? Or let's say this furniture you bought in Home Depot. So this $8,000, let's say, new kitchen that you purchased, do you want to stagger the payments for it? Or do you want to, get, if you spend $500 more today in some nearby shops, then you get some extra points. So there are various kinds of offers that could be sent to customers in real time. Usually they're sent through the financial institution's app or sometimes through SMS, depending on the specific customers, the way it's set up. But that's how it appears to the end user, right? So you make a transaction and seconds later, or you might get offers and options. Right? So that's but behind the scenes, there's each of those transactions become events in a stream processing platform that gets processed by our engine, and then in real time, machine learning models might be scored to predict the next best offer, next best action, and then we decide the best channel and the best language as well to communicate to the end user and send it to a typically campaign automation platform that might actually push the message appropriately.
Wow. So, and are your clients seeing benefits out of this? Because this looks like a great idea to upsell, cross sell, right? And just for a customer satisfaction perspective. And how are your clients or customers seeing benefits coming out of this?
Oh, definitely. So the typical response rates or conversion rates for those kinds of real-time offers that are made in the context tend to be at least 2 or 3 times higher than say an email that may be sent a day or two later, right? Because at that time, it is out of your mind. So when you are at your, making a transaction, potentially looking at the phone, making a transaction as well sometimes, and you get an offer, then yeah, the conversion rates are much higher. Right? So another similar use case is, and it's more in prepaid markets in Asia and other continents, where as soon as, let's say, you make a top up, right, on your phone, you're looking at your phone. As soon as that happens, you get an offer saying, if you top up a little bit more right now, then you get, let's say, 2 GB of data free. So, those are kinds where the contextualness of the offers, you're already in the minds of the user as a company. That's when the right time. It's the right time to hit the customer with an offer and hopefully get a positive response.
Fantastic, fantastic. You're really tapping into the psyche of the customer when they're really into the moment. And then
Exactly.
by providing a real time offer, you make that sale happen. That's fantastic. And if you can walk through some of the technologies that you have used, while bulk of the engine is built by you, any open source technology or anything that you can share around how the architecture was made for this?
Sure. So this was so the various technologies that come into play here. So we used Kafka as the engine for actually sending the streaming data. But Kafka is more the message bus. So one of the key innovations that we made as part of this platform was a real-time aggregation engine. So, so typically for many machine learning models, when they need to be scored in real time, many of these features tend to be aggregates. So let's say they take the example of a shopper, right? That they made a purchase, and now you want to predict, should I send this person an offer or not? So there might be a machine learning model that makes a decision, and that model typically will make use of aggregate features. For instance, what is the total number of purchases this person has made in the last few hours, a few days, a few months? How many has he already got an offer, or she already got an offer today? So there are lots of real-time aggregate features that need to be computed, right? And that's where a lot of the the computational complexity comes in, because you need to compute those aggregates sometimes that are over minutes or hours or days, right, from at the point of prediction. So a key innovation we made was building our own engine on top of Redis to compute these aggregates in an efficient manner in real time over different time granularities. And then once these features are computed, then we use machine learning models that might have been built offline but now scored in real time in an efficient manner to actually decide what's the next offer. So sometimes it's rule based, sometimes there are fixed rules, sometimes there are ML models, but then a system comes with A/B testing capabilities to allow testing different kinds of either models or rules to decide what to send to any given customer at any given point in time. So that's sort of the key technique. And the other innovation for this product was allowing business users, which are typically marketers, to be able to specify new kinds of campaigns easily. So, challenge with many real-time systems is that it's not easy to. It often takes a long time from when a marketer might conceptualize a new campaign, saying, okay, if a person, let's say in a telecommunications case, as soon as a person roams, let's say turn on his phone in different countries, send this person this kind of offer if he or she has these kinds of properties, right? So let's say that that's a new campaign that's envisaged by a marketer. To actually uh, you know operationalize that, traditionally it would take a lot of programming effort, because most real-time systems tend to be, you have to write code to actually detect those events and create those aggregates and make it happen. But the other key innovation we did was to have a UI where there was a pseudo natural language interface where they could type something like what I just said, and that gets converted back in the backend into code that gets run on a streaming platform. So that way, the marketer could iterate on new ideas of campaigns very quickly, whereas in the past it might have taken them, let's say, months from conceptualization to operationalization.
Wow, fantastic. So a very agile platform for marketers to experiment, to learn, and then change as the case might be,
Right.
so they can be far more effective.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, marketing these days tends to be, it's highly dynamic, right? So the kinds of offers that might have worked a year back may or may not have worked. Or even the kind of messaging, right? It's has to be very dynamic, and many marketing tools today don't, especially for real-time campaigns, don't always offer that level of dynamism and experimentation.
Right, right, right. No, wonderful. I clearly see that there was a gap out there that you and your team filled up with the marketing, real time marketing insight that you have.
Mhm.
Fantastic. And let's move on to the second one that you have, the Cubo. Talk to me about it. That sounds a very interesting use case. I see a lot of people. We talk about BI, business intelligence, to a lot of our users, but many a time that just means list of tables and trying to query something from a database, be it structured or unstructured. But
Yep.
what you're talking about is really like a conversational BI. So talk to me
Definitely.
about it. What are you trying to achieve there?
Yeah, so the idea is to make it easier for non-technical users to get access to the data that they need. Right? So let's say we stay with the same marketing use case, which also tends to be some of our popular. Most of our users tend to be either marketing or in sales. So as a marketer, you want to find out how are, say, the last few campaigns on Facebook ads doing compared to similar campaigns running on Google ads or TikTok ads. So today there are systems that can potentially bring that data all together. So there are lots of tools that do transformation from the source systems and get the data as tables potentially in a warehouse. But even after that, there's actually a lot of work needed to query the data and especially in ad hoc manners to produce interesting insights. So a common use case. So if you already know, so there's some questions that are always being asked of marketers. Like there are common questions like what's the conversion rate for or click-through rate or return on ad spend for these kinds of campaigns. But they're often also ad hoc questions. So the common questions you can plan for it and have dashboards be available as and when a marketer might need it. But the challenge comes in the ad hoc questions. Let's say they see a trend that conversion rate has been declining, right? And now they want to dig deeper. Right? Is it because of has the budget been decreasing, or have has the number of clicks been constant, but the reach increased? So lots of things could be going on behind lower conversion rates, right? But that digging deeper tends to be not well supported by most BI tools, at least off the shelf, right? Without somebody having to create more charts, as and when they need it. So if they know Tableau or Power BI, those tools well, then they can do it. But most people may not. And even if they know those tools, in many customers they work with, there might be hundreds of tables or thousands of tables in the backend data warehouse that all sound very similar, but all actually mean something a bit different. So there's a big challenge between the people who need this data to, say, optimize future campaigns and the people who know how to construct the queries to get the relevant reports. Right? So that's where Cubo fits in, to allow these non-technical users to ask questions on potentially very complex databases with multiple, possibly sometimes tens to hundreds of tables, and sometimes complex schemas, and get back insights quickly.
Right. And Anand, is it limited to marketing for now, or can I, if I'm a finance business user or a procurement business user, can I use it across different business functions?
No, it is general. It is built in a horizontal manner. So a key innovation in Cubo was it came with a tool where you could specify a data glossary, saying that in my organization, these are definitions of the terms that commonly used by my organization. These are defaults that typically that our organization has settled on, and these are typical ways you present information. So all those get fed into the system, so that now if you go to a new domain, let's need to specify the definitions of the terms used. So, for instance, even something like take-up rate, right, or is the definitions are often different in different organizations. So some organizations is more simple calculation, like it might just be the number of people who took an offer divided by the number of people who sent an offer. But other places, they might have a constant net take-up rate, where you compare the take-up rate on a target group versus a control group. So there are lots of different variations, right? And each organization has its own terms. So we found that an important need was to allow any organization to define their metrics and define their terms appropriately, so that business users can use the terms they're familiar with, and systems should know how to compute them. So over the past few years, this has become more common concept. So some people call it the metrics layer. So companies like DBT and others, if you've heard of them, have also started building these kind of semantic layers, although I don't think as comprehensive as we have. But that metrics layer, semantic layer, helps in bridging the gap between the terms used by business users and the underlying data. Right? And that's where the challenge often lies, in natural language to SQL translation.
Excellent. So Anand, let's take an example. Let's say I'm a company and I have very typical marketing systems like Marketo and others. I have a ERP, be it SAP or Oracle, and then I have something like a data warehouse like a Snowflake, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to start using your tool for the purpose of measuring the effectiveness of my marketing campaigns. So how do I get started with Cubo?
Right. So there are a few different ways to architect the system. So in that framework you provided. So One approach is, let's say you can let the data remain in those different sources. So you can let the SAP data be in SAP, you can let Snowflake data be in Snowflake, and Kubo has connectors to HANA, to Snowflake, and lots of other databases. So so you would essentially set up these data sources within Kubo. You would specify the data dictionary, data glossary for these sources within Kubo, and then a machine model gets trained, NLP model essentially gets trained behind the scenes that would allow translation. Right. So this product was first built in the pre-LLM days. So it was we had our own proprietary approach for building the models. But now, with LLMs, we mix our earlier approach with LLMs to essentially improve the accuracy. But that's sort of the way it's set up, right? So each source gets set up within Kubo, and each source gets associated with the data dictionary, data glossary, and then that glossary gets used whenever a natural language question comes from the end user. So the first thing Kubo does is when a question comes is to first decide which database it should send the query to. And then once it picks the database, then picks the tables and within those, and then forms a query, sends a query to that database, gets back the answer, and then shows it as charts and natural language. So at a very high level, that's sort of the way Kubo is deployed in these kinds of situations.
Oh, wonderful. And do I have the ability to, for example, to do like a double click and look at some more details if I ask a query to Kubo?
Yes. So, and you can do that in two ways. So one is conversationally. So you could ask a first question like in that example, what's the click-through rate daily for Facebook ad campaigns for in the Northeast, right? And then it might give you a graph. And next question can be show me by campaign name. Right? So it's able to recognize that the next question was actually a continuation of the previous question with just an additional group by. So you can do it conversationally, or you can do it through a dashboard UI where you can right-click on the line graph and say add a dimension. So yeah, but the key idea was to make it conversational and allow people to ask those questions to do the double click through even text and not just visually. Right? And the reason for that conversational element was, one of the things we saw that is happening is more and more people are spending more and more time on enterprise collaboration systems like Microsoft Teams and Slack. So the conversation approach is partly designed so that Kubo could be added as a bot within a team. So as you keep asking questions, it's not just you seeing the answers, but everybody else in that same team seeing the answers.
Wow, fantastic, Anand. Wonderful tool that solves a big problem, especially for a lot of business users who are not very IT savvy, right? And it's okay
Indeed.
to be not IT savvy for a lot of business users because
Yeah.
they are busy doing other things, and
Indeed.
yet how do you help them be productive and very efficient in their work? So, Anand, what are some of your customers telling you about the benefit that they received after having used Kubo?
Right. It is the we've had two kinds of customers that kind of, you could say, own Kubo. So one is the data analytics team, right? They might already be supporting tools like Tableau or Power BI today, and they would essentially deploy Kubo as a side tool. So they would keep the current tool because Kubo doesn't necessarily replace all the functionalities that other BI tools might have, but then it's meant for this ad hoc question. So yeah, so for those cases, we've seen the feedback we often get is that the number of ad hoc requests that they might get after Kubo does decrease, right? Because some of the requests are being satisfied with Kubo. At the same time, because especially if it's in teams, they're able to see the questions being asked. So if Kubo does happen to come back with an incorrect interpretation or or pick the wrong table, for instance, to ask a question on, then somebody can jump in and say, oh, this is actually Kubo made a mistake here. Let's word it differently, and we'll get a different answer. So they're still able to keep a sort of a peripheral view of people asking questions while reducing a lot of the heavy lifting that they had to do in the past. So yeah, so that's one kind of case when that's typically just happen when the analytics team or the data team is the one that's managing Kubo. The other case is when the business user is the one owning the platform, and again over there it's a similar story that they're able to ask more questions automatically without having to create service requests that might go to an analytics team. And so yeah, that tends to be the biggest feedback. The other feedback that sometimes we get is that because Cubo sort of forces a data glossary to be built, this tends to be both a sometimes a big plus as well as sometimes a bit of a hurdle, right? Because it forces people then to decide, okay, fine, this is the definition of this term going forward, right? And then sometimes we get pulled into these long conversations on, okay, how do I define revenue? What's the difference between gross revenue, net revenue, and so on. So, and many organizations, don't always have all these terms as well defined as they should. So that tends to be kind of a side benefit. We think of Cubo, where given that you have this natural language tool, which users are now starting to make use of, there's now a need to make sure that those terms are completely well defined and everybody accepts the definitions. So that's kind of a side benefit that we see from Cubo.
Yeah, no, fantastic. There is a lot of standardization that you're bringing in, and discipline, of course, right, in terms of the language that we use internally within the company. And for sure, there's a lot of self-service capabilities that you're bringing in with this tool.
Indeed,
That's
yeah.
amazing. That is amazing, Anand. And let's take a step back in terms of, you set up the company. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity that was built in when you created these products and the kind of, reaching out to customers and all that. So how did you tell me some of the challenges that you face as you're creating your team?
Oh, yeah. So the team is a combination of the. Uh, so at least at Unscramble, there were, I would say, almost three key teams. So one was a product development team, right, that was building the main product and innovating the algorithms. The second was the sales and marketing team that was reaching out to customers. And the third was, you could say, a consulting services team that would deploy the product at customers and also be involved in all the discussions on what's the meaning of this term versus this other term. Right. So that's how we are kind of structured the company. Yeah, the challenges in all three in hiring the right kind of people for all three sections. Right, so the product team was needed very solid engineers. The services team needed slightly more agile thinking and quick fixing. Sometimes even quick hacks to make things work in the customer setting. Right, and yes, we just had to approach those hirings with different mindsets, with different interview processes in mind while building these teams.
Great, great. And Anand, talk to me about your leadership style, right? So you're taking a lot of decisions. The people are working with you for you. Talk to me about some of your leadership styles, and how do you take decisions?
So I try to be as collaborative as possible, so everybody gets a say, and then sometimes I have to take a final call, or me and the other partners in the company would take a final call. But at least I try to be as collaborative as possible. Try to give people the power to make decisions or take decisions, at least in the area that they own. Don't micromanage too much, but at the same time, keep an eye on the end goal. I try to make sure that everything is finally leading towards what we think is the right place. And so that's sort of, yeah, my style is, respect the people. We try to hire top engineers, so give them the respect and the space where they can operate efficiently, and try to encourage the best work from everybody, keep everybody motivated, and with the eye on the prize.
Yeah, no, wonderful. Being very collaborative, being respectful, because you're obviously hiring top-notch engineers, right? This is not simple stuff. This is very complicated that you're trying to solve. So naturally, you need to give space to those very qualified engineers that you're hiring, and of course, be very collaborative with them.
Exactly.
Yeah. So taking a step forward, so you have your company in a certain way today. I know that you're also transitioning to 1 by 0. So talk to me about a little bit about what your future vision is for the company. Where are you guys headed?
Yeah, I'll just briefly say that we're in the process of transitioning to to one by zero, partly because Unscramble is being acquired by another company, or at least assets of Unscramble are being acquired by another company. So at one by zero, the focus is on building, is more on services, on implementing interesting AI-based solutions for enterprises. And so we do both. So the three key parts in one by zero. So one is data, second is ML, and third is AI. So the data side of focus is around is taking some of the learnings we had on Cubo on having the right governance process in place, but creating data platforms for enterprises with strong governance, especially around testing, around glossaries, catalogs, security, and other aspects. The second key platform or second key area with one by zero is machine learning, where we build what I call classical machine learning, or we solve classical machine learning problems. So these are problems around next best actions or next best offers, around churn prediction, around price optimization or demand forecasting. So these are all problems where they're not, there aren't yet Gen AI based solutions. So you still have to do the hands-on data science work of building models and know how to optimize them and how to operationalize them. Right. So that being said, there are some models coming in those place, but I think it's pretty far off from actually taking over. Right. And the third space is Gen AI. Uh, so in the past, especially for NLP or vision problems, we used to build models for NLP and vision, but I think these days, there's a big question on should we ever build an NLP model anymore, or just rely on an LLM to do NLP tasks, whether it's like document classification or name recognition or anything else. But those are three key spaces where we are building solutions for customers and lots of interesting projects. So one of the more interesting ones we've worked on recently is around optimizing next best option, next best offers for it's about 50 to 60 million customers for a telecommunications company in an iterative manner and a semi-automated manner, where we built a combination of an ML and GenAI system that comes up with the right experiments to runs experiments, monitors the results, and decides what to do next. So, but yeah, that's sort of goal one by zero, to implement interesting solutions. Partly because as we started this call, and I was saying that it's difficult to build horizontal products anymore. So right now we're building lots of interesting solutions for customers that provide value while while also observing all the all the advancements that some of the other companies are making.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. I mean, it's such a dynamic world. Things are changing every single day. Every company has a sort of better LLM than the other company.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So that's the world we live in. But Anand, let's say if you had a crystal ball in your hand, so where do you think is AI is headed? What do you think? Where do you see AI in the next 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah, no, it's a difficult question, but it's definitely taking on more and more complex tasks, right? So the last few months, especially, there's been a whole spate of in terms of use of LLM for I think they call it agents almost, where it doesn't just do one question answer, but performs a series of either chain of thought reasoning, or performs a series of actions to achieve a certain goal. Right, so there's notions like graph-based RAG or graph and a lang graph and a bunch of others, where or agent-based AI or multi-agent-based systems where different AI personalities or bots are collaborating to achieve a certain goal. So already it's pretty impressive, the amount of automation and complexity of tasks that AI can take, right? And yeah, I mean, it kind of boggles the mind in terms of what's possible. Right? So even tasks that were fairly complex, that required say teams of developers, or that required even say in the case of marketing, like a marketing expert with say 20 years of experience working with a bunch of analysts, those kinds of tasks, I think potentially AI could just take over a marketing department potentially in 3 or 4 years potentially, right? So it's both a beautiful and scary new world. But yeah, I think at least technically, I think I can see that happening where it takes over more and more tasks, even not just menial tasks, but tasks that might have required significant mental horsepower.
Yeah, that's right, and that's the scary part, right? Whether it's complement humans versus replace humans, right? And we are at the intersection where we are talking about both,
Yeah.
the AI doing both, and that's the scary part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Even just from a developer point of view, right? That's the of course the productivity of developers is so much more thanks to all the thanks to LMs and all the other tools like GitHub's Copilot and AWS Code Whisperer. But there's a point almost now where most of the code can be self-generated, right? So even developers, I think, have to figure out where they stand vis-a-vis LLMs
Right.
in the software development lifecycle.
Right. Yeah. Another two things I wanted to get your opinion on. You being such an expert and a known person in this area, how about privacy, data privacy, and how about ethics in the world of AI? What are your thoughts on how do we improve that?
Um, so partly, I think uh, it comes down to market pressures as well. So one interesting example I've seen is with in the image generation space, right, where there'll be lots of tools, everything from OpenAI's DALI to Stable Diffusion's models, and Adobe's come out with its own models now, Midjourney. But the uh, but because there's so much of concern on where data was used from for training these models, the adoption I think has been very low in enterprises, especially for Midjourney and Stable Diffusion models, just because there's a suspicion and perhaps also fair suspicion that they were trained on non-licensed content. At the same time, Adobe is, they claim they've trained on their own content, and I think people are using Adobe much more when it's part of Photoshop and others too. So that's one way where I guess market pressures might force LM creators to be more sensitive to where they get the data from for training the models. I think even OpenAI has kind of shifted that. I mean, in the past, I think there were lots of cases where there was accidental leaks of confidential information from ChatGPT. But I think now OpenAI is being much more methodical on what data they use from users' interactions to train the models. It's partly because of commercial pressures too. So yeah, so that's one answer. But yeah, in general, yeah, it is it, it is a difficult problem. There's it's especially with LLMs, it's more and more difficult to know whether your data has been used for training or not, unless it's directly you see an example, right, where I think just recently, right, whether one of GPT-4o's voice models, was claimed to be sound very similar to Scarlett Johansson's voice, right? And nobody can prove or disprove necessarily that, or it's not probably not easy to prove or disprove if they actually took her voice samples or not. Perhaps they didn't, but it's not easy to prove otherwise, right? So they have to take it down, I guess, until they fix it somehow. But yeah, but in general, it is privacy becomes much more challenging in this space, right? And yeah, I know many of the bigger companies are asking for more regulations, but that's also partly potentially to help them solidify their lead already. So yeah, I don't have an answer necessarily, but I think combination of market pressures and some amount of regulations is probably the way things will evolve.
Yeah, no, those are great things because regulations for sure. Yes, I mean governments are also have to move, or regulatory authorities have to move much faster than what they have been historically. But then you're also spot on about the market forces part, right? There is a certain market dynamic that plays in.
Yeah,
If you are a company that is not really honest, right, about where you source the data from, then the market sees it, or somebody sees it, right? Experts see it. Uh,
correct.
you're sure your place
Yeah,
versus being forthright. So certainly the market has a huge role to play, and that's a great way of putting it.
yeah. but but yeah, let's see. It's still open, right? And privacy has also changed in terms of what people consider private. And there's still a gap, but I think uh, there's this notion of trade-off, right? If people might be willing to sacrifice some privacy for getting some service, right? And the question is how much, you know. So in things like, Google Maps and so on, I think they make a trade-off that they give the location, and Google is now allows traffic to be displayed. But yeah, we'll see where exactly the trade-off comes in interactions with LLMs.
Right, right. Yeah, and those are great unknowns. Those are great unknowns that will only uncover in the next couple of years. Yeah. So
Yeah.
fantastic, Anand. I really appreciate you. We spoke at length about your background, the fantastic background that you have had. It's very, very inspiring for all the people listening in there. The companies that you have formed, the kind of problem that you're solving. I mean, that is very, very inspirational. And I'm sure people listening in and watching this will have tons of ideas of what to do. All right, what are the open areas that are there? And also thank you for sharing your insights on the whole thing about the future of AI, where AI is headed, the data aspect of it, the privacy aspect of it, and the ethics aspect of it. So truly appreciate it, Anand.
No, thanks, Arun. Thanks for being a great host and just leading and guiding the conversation in a very nice manner. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Anand.